Welcome back into Cougar Tracks here on KSLSports.com. Mitch Harper here. And joining me is BYU great and NFL quarterback Jaren Hall. Jaren, how you doing today?
I'm doing really well, Mitch. Happy to be here with you.
I'm happy to chat with you and catch up and see how things are going. And also wanted to, talk to you about this BYU quarterback situation. It unexpected to have a three-man quarterback race, but a man that went through that is yourself. In 2021, you experienced a three-man quarterback battle in fall camp. Take us through maybe just your memories of going into that 2021 season and the experiences of navigating a quarterback battle.
Yep, it was stressful, a little nerve-wracking at first, but it was awesome because you quickly learn your process of how to kind of drown out the outside noise, all the attention around it, and just focus on your task as a quarterback. So pretty quickly into camp, I just remember being able to focus more on what I'm supposed to be doing, learning the offense, and just operating at a really high level to the best of my ability. So I think being in a battle is really good for everyone involved. It helps you, create a process mentally to overcome any, distractions and just focus on playing ball. So I had some good memories of it, some bad memories, but I think that's what a good battle is all for is bringing out the best and the worst of every player and seeing who can handle, the things thrown their way the best.
I think when people look at quarterback battles on the outside, they think potentially more of the worst things. They think of, oh, this could divide a locker room or things like that. From your experience, was that challenging to, navigate that and almost win a political side of things to make sure the locker room's on board with you or whoever the quarterback is, and also maintain the relationship with Baylor Romney and Jacob Conover at the time?
No, I think the three of us had, good relationships with the team. Just, good dudes who, kept things on the field. I don't think it brought any drama onto the field. So at that point, we could all just go play football, and the best player at that time in camp, I think the team easily would just rally behind. And so when you don't have drama off the field and your position groups and you're cordial and you're just good dudes who know how to compete without content, without jealousy, it makes it really easy for the team to get behind that. And I don't think it brings any drama when you do have a competition like that.
Coach Aaron Roderick is going to be deciding the quarterback for 2025. You obviously were coached by A-Rod during your time at BYU, and he was the offensive coordinator in 2021. When you guys were going into that quarterback battle, were there areas of focus or emphasis that A-Rod kind of let you guys know when you reported to camp back in 2021 of, hey, if you want to win this job, you got to check off these boxes, if you will?
Not that I can remember. A-Rod doesn't ever put you in a box and make you feel like you're confined to doing something or you have to do this or, you won't get that. It was always just, you guys need to understand the playbook as well as I do, as well as, our quarterback coach does. You got to be on the same page as him and Fessy. And that's the role of quarterback. You got to be another coach there. You got to understand and be able to operate it without the coaches having to have their hand on everything. And so I just remember that being the expectation for us, just to understand the offense, be able to drop the plays, know where to go with the ball, be able to take care of the ball, limit turnovers. And those are just the basics of, kind of what his focus for us was. And I just remember him not putting a lot of stress on the quarterback battle, just going and playing, doing what everyone did in spring ball and just carrying that into camp.
Was it hard for you to avoid the stresses yourself, off the field and all the spotlight that comes with that? Or, you've always been a pretty cool, calm customer, if you will, but was that challenging at all for you to not get a little too stressed about what if this happens, what if that happens?
No, I think those feelings of stress and kind of playing everything out in your mind before it happened took place during the break of spring ball and fall camp. It's kind of building up to it. Nothing's happened yet. Kind of that moment of silence in your play, so you don't know what's going to happen. You're just thinking. And for me, when there's a lot of time to think, there's a lot of negative thoughts that pop up, and I think that's how our human nature is, just to think negatively about the stuff we can't control. But then by the time camp started and we're actually on the grass, we're throwing the ball around, then the instincts of football as a quarterback, think about the playbook, those things took over, and you're so busy that you kind of lose the ability to focus on that unless you're really enamored by the outside stuff. And I think most people, don't find too much success thinking that way.
Talk with Jaren Hall, former BYU quarterback, had 8 victories over power conference teams during his time as the BYU starting quarterback. And that's noteworthy because you were before BYU joined the Big 12 Conference. And when you were going into that 2021 season, Jaren, did anything change to your, off-season preparation, or is it more of what you were always doing and the trust that you've already been building up as a player, or did you kind of ramp things up in preparation for that battle?
Yeah, I definitely did. I grew up, I worked with a great quarterback coach in Dustin Smith. So I spent a lot of time with him, then leading into transitioning and spending time with John Beck, who I still train with, quite a bit. And so just changing some of the things I did, talking to additional people, John, Dustin, just picking people's brains, just trying to do more than I had been because I wanted to see different results. So brought great people into my corner. And then continue just to build trust with the guys. We'd all go throughout together, all the QBs and receivers. We do it often. You're working out every day in college, which is awesome. The NFL, you're away from each other for a long time between OTAs and camp. But in college, we're working out every single day together. So everyone's together, building that camaraderie. And it was, just spending more time, with more quarterback minds and just with the guys was huge for my preparation.
And I'm curious too, by being around the guys every single day and with the coaching staff, I would assume too, did Coach Roderick kind of give you guys updates of where you stood in the battle? I've always been kind of intrigued by that with competitions because everyone tries to forecast who might be here, who's there. Is that communicated from your experience when you were going through that?
I wish I could say, man, there's so much stuff that's filled my brain since then. Maybe at times he did. If I had to guess now, not being able to remember, I'd say no, because knowing A-Rod, he just wants guys to play free, not feel like anyone's looking over their shoulder or chasing somebody. It was probably just that everyone's playing really well, or everyone's not playing well. We got to be better. I felt like we tended to keep things as a group overall, and everyone just try to elevate your game together. So I can't remember a time where he'd say so and so's here, so and so's there. They just keep reps split throughout camp, and then they make the call before that first Arizona game. Is how I remember it.
Yeah, that 2021 season, you guys opened up with Arizona, and that was a special team. You guys win 10 games, and it feels like Kalani's tenure at BYU, if you kind of look back through things, it's some of his best teams have started with years where there was a quarterback battle. And I'm curious, Jaren, from your experience, what was it about that group in 2021 that despite maybe the lack of a defined number one guy, going into fall camp at the most important position, that group was able to have big time success and win big ball games, likes of which that BYU had not done in some time. So what was something about that battle that maybe created some success for that team in 2021?
I'd say just like every good BYU team I've been around, it starts with a chip on your shoulder. The season before was Zach and Dax and everybody. They had a great year, balled out, but then, they caught some slack for it being a COVID year. And then, they left and were all drafted. And then, we were told that we wouldn't be a good team because we lost all of them. So the guys that played that season before had a chip on their shoulder from, people disrespecting the schedule that they played. And then guys like me, Baylor and Jake, who were competing for that job, had a chip on our shoulder to get better. And I think that elevated everybody else around us. So just felt like everybody in that team had a chip on their shoulder. We brought in Samson and Puka, brought some energy to us. Neil and Gunnar coming back at the wide receiver position, had a lot of experience in that offense. The defense was great. We had a lot of good returners, but it's the normal BYU story. You get disrespected all off season. You have a chip on your shoulder. You throw in a quarterback competition. At the most important position. There was just a lot of energy and I think a lot of focus from everybody. So it just brought everyone together. Everyone had a chip on their shoulder, and we just got after it all camp.
I'm curious, what was the moment or that Kalani or Coach Roderick told you that you were going to be the full-time starter and be that week one guy against Arizona? Was there some amazing moment? I remember they held a press conference for the media the weeks before. It wasn't like day one in Vegas. They announced it. They let some buildup happen with you being QB1. Was there some moment that you might remember of them telling you that you were the QB1 and won the battle?
Oh, dude, I can't even remember. I'll be honest. I don't remember if it was A-Rod. I don't remember if it was Kalani or both of them, or if I saw it on a news presser. I can't remember. I have no idea.
It's
I
all
wish I could remember.
business for you
I
then.
too many concussions, man. I've been banged upside the head too much. I just stuff's falling out of my ears. So, yeah, a lot of business, exactly.
Well, that's
But
fair.
I wish I could remember. I'd have to ask one of them what it was. They
That
probably
that
know.
that's I appreciate the insight of kind of reflecting back on that time, because this 2025 BYU football program is going to be having a three-man battle, expected to be with McCae Hillstead, Treyson Bourguet, and Bear Bachmeier, true freshman. What do you? Well, curious, just your thoughts from watching now as an alum BYU football, what they're doing in the Big 12, and what they're going into this year with these quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, these guys all, from what I know about them, I haven't seen them all play a ton. I know McCae a little better than the others because I played against his older brother. He played at Springville back when we were growing up, so I knew McCae and his family. So I followed him at Skyridge. He worked out with Dustin Smith for a lot of years, and so we had a connection there. They all bring something different to the table. Obviously, I haven't watched them a ton. I know you got their athleticisms. They spin the ball really well. Been in the offense now, I think everyone but Bear for a year at least. And so you have some experience in some of them, and others you have some excitement at, Bear as a freshman and what he could do. But man, they got something great that they're going into. The Big 12, again, I think they're going to have another chip on their shoulder. They had a great year last year. They had to earn every bit of respect that they got. And then sure enough, as soon as the season's over, it's back to, BYU's not going to be this and not going to be that for, whatever the reasons are. And so that's just more excitement for them to go and prove themselves in the Big 12 again. There's some really good teams, and they'll play at some good venues, which is really exciting. But they got a lot ahead of them, and so I'm sure each and every one of them are excited for their opportunity ahead.
What would be your advice to those guys if you could, give them just a pointer as a guy who's been through this and done it at some of the highest levels in under Kalani Sitake and Aaron Roderick in BYU football history at quarterback? What would be your advice to these guys as they navigate this competition and the upcoming season?
I'd say just buy into the team culture. The love and learning aspect goes into the love for your teammates, which you know encourages you to put in more time in your playbook, more time in the weight room, so you can be available and be at your best. The learning aspect, to be the last one to leave the building, to be spending extra time on your iPad studying, when you could be doing something else. I think if you buy into that culture that Kalani's built, it just feeds into football. People see it as like a spiritual or like just a social theme that people try to just be good people, but it's so much more than that, and it leads into his number one role as a football coach of creating good young men and winning football games. And so when guys really buy into that, especially the quarterback position, I think you elevate your playing abilities, you elevate your learning and your studying. And so as a quarterback, that's the number one thing: just learning your offense, understanding how to be a smart player out there, and trust your instincts. But train those instincts by studying. You don't have a lot to fall back on. So you got to fall back on good habits and just raise your floor as much as possible. And that's what Kalani's culture does. When you buy into it. So that'd be my tidbit.
Has it been kind of cool from your perspective, to see BYU football evolve in that culture with Kalani? And I asked that because you were part of his first recruiting class in 2016, and Kalani has evolved quite a bit as a head coach. He's really settled in, and now it looks like he's the guy to really lead BYU football for the foreseeable future in the Big 12. Just how much kind of pride do you take into playing a role in the growth of the program and seeing Kalani's evolution from those days when you committed to him and that his program in 2016?
Yeah. Everyone changes over, it's been almost 10 years now since he took over, and, people change, some good, some bad when have the reins, for that long. And Kalani has just continued to make the best changes, not that he needed improvements, but just continued to adapt to the kids that he has and the culture he wanted to build. And he's brought in phenomenal support, cast around him with A-Rod and bringing in Coach Hill. I mean, just phenomenal cast and crew around Kalani, so he can be the head coach he wants to be, so he can continue to build a community around the team to bring support, trust his coaches that are spending more time on the X's and O's, even though Kalani knows it through and through. He's just built the cast around him to be able to do what he wants to do as a head coach. And you see that now. He's kind of in his flow, doing his thing. And it's only going to get better. When you give a guy like him the reins to do what he wants to do freely, and you trust the vision he has, this is what you get. Is this, phenomenal program that he's had for almost 10 years now, and it's only going to get better. So he's stayed consistent as a person from when I first met him to now as a coach, and he just continues to bring people around him who can buy into what he envisions for that program.
He's Jaren Hall, former BYU, great quarterback, NFL quarterback. Jaren Hall here on Cougar Tracks. I hope you and your family are doing well. I always think back when I see the evolution of TikTok these days. I always think back the first real TikTok I remember is you with your baby. I'm sure she's grown up a ton. I hope everything's going well for you, Jaren, and your family, wife and kids, and wishing nothing but the best and appreciate the time.
Thank you, Mitch. Yeah, they're all doing great. I appreciate that.
That's Jaren Hall here on the Cougar Tracks podcast.